Mangala Charitra Sada Mangala Yandanama. So we'll just go through this translation. Being a reservoir of all auspicious attributes, Sri Advaita Acharya is all auspicious for the world. His characteristics, activities, and name are always auspicious. Please repeat. Being a reservoir of all auspicious attributes. Sri Advaita Acharya is all auspicious for the world. His characteristics, activities, and name are always auspicious. Sri Prabhupada's purport. Key. Sri Advaita Prabhu, who is an incarnation of Mahavishnu, is an Acharya or teacher. All his activities and all the other activities of Vishnu are auspicious. Anyone who can view the all auspiciousness in the pastimes of Lord Vishnu also becomes auspicious simultaneously. Therefore, since Lord Vishnu is the fountainhead of auspiciousness, anyone who is attracted by the devotional service of Lord Vishnu can render the greatest service to human society. Rejected persons of the material world who refuse to understand pure devotional service as the eternal function of the living entities and as actual liberation of the living being from conditioned life become bereft of all devotional service because of their poor fund of knowledge. In the teaching of Advaita Prabhu, there is no question of fruitive activities or impersonal liberation. Bewildered by the spell of the material energy, however, persons who could not understand that Advaita Prabhu is non-different from Vishnu wanted to follow him with their impersonal conceptions. The attempt of Advaita Prabhu to punish them is also auspicious. Lord Vishnu and his activities can bestow all good fortune directly and indirectly. In other words, being favoured by Lord Vishnu and being punished by Lord Vishnu are one and the same, because all the activities of Vishnu are absolute. According to some, Mangala was another name of Advaita Prabhu. As the causal incarnation of Lord Vishnu's incarnation for a particular occasion, he is a supply agent or ingredient in material nature. However, he is never to be considered material. All his activities are spiritual. Anyone who hears about and glorifies him becomes glorified himself. For such activities, free one from all kinds of misfortune. One should not invest in material contamination or impersonalism in the Vishnu form. Everyone should try to understand the real identity of Lord Vishnu, for by such knowledge one can attain the highest perfection of life. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Shashurnitam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagayate Gurum Netkripa Tamam Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So there's so much can be said about Advaita Acharya. We can't say it all, but we'll try and squeeze in some of the nectar. So first of all, perhaps we can talk about the position of Advaita Acharya. So we've heard it said that he's an incarnation of Mahavishnu, and we've also heard he's an incarnation of Sadashiva. Can anyone shed any light on that? Is it one or the other, or both? It's both.
Like Ramananda Roy, right? He's so many different people in one. Arjuna and is it Lalita? There's got a whole bunch in Chaitanya Leela who are like.
Exactly, yeah. So sometimes divine personalities, more than one of them, can take the role of one person to do a particular function of the Lord. And Sadashiva is considered to be the original Shiva of Goloka, not the Rudra Shiva of the material world, according to Srila Prabhupada. So we have this verse, Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. It's interesting that there's that verse and there's also Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. And I was just thinking about that today, that actually I was listening to a lecture by Srila Prabhupada where he was talking about these three personalities as being Ishvara, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and Advaita Prabhu. And then the others are Shakti Tattva. But still, even though there's three Ishwaras, Lord Nityananda and Advaita Acharya, they assume servitorship. And so Prabhupada was saying that when Lord Advaita Acharya appeared, which was approximately 52 years before Lord Chaitanya appeared, and according to his the history, then he lived to be about 125 or something like that. Someone might think, oh, how can someone live to be 125? Well, he's Mahavishnu for a start. He can live to be 1,025,000 if he wants. He already is eternal. But if we try to place some material concept on him, then we'll never understand anything about his wonderful nature. And he was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, who was the grandfather, spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya. So in this sense, he was considered to be senior to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya always looked at him like that. But Advaita Acharya, Prabhupada also mentions that when Lord appeared, Lord Advaita Acharya, then he could see that everybody was engrossed in material activities, either sinful or pious. So the pious activities also were bereft of devotional service to Krishna. And he seen that there was actually, as Prabhupada always preached, that there was the only thing which is lacking in the material world is Krishna consciousness. So there was the pious people who weren't being sinful, but they were still completely engaged in material activities, simply using the Vedic literatures for some temporary material benefit. And in this way, they weren't making a plan for their ultimate benefit. And so what is our ultimate benefit, anyone? Or the problems in life, right? So the problems of life, some people think problems of life is not enough money, or not enough hair, or not enough respect, or too much of something. But what are the real problems of life? There's four of them. Janmrityu Jara Vyadi, which is English, anyone? Old age and disease. Birth, death, old age and disease. So Advaita Acharya, he's saying that nobody was making any serious endeavor for the solution of these four things, because if you solve these, then you solve everything else. In 26 Second Avenue, Prabhupada, he was preaching like this, that there's so many swamis offering this. If you pay me $50, I'll give you a mantra and you can become God in 3 weeks. And people are going, oh, great, and they were buying it like this because this is what they want. And Prabhupada would point out cheaters and the cheated. Those who want to be cheaters, then someone who wants to be cheated will come along. And he said, actually, those who want to be cheated are worse than the cheaters because they actually feed the market, don't they? No, it's a bit like saying you eating meat and you justify it by saying, well, I didn't kill the animal. No, but you bought it, you paid someone else to kill it. So you're just equally implicated. So the cheaters and the cheated, and Prabhupada, the real problems of life is birth, death, old age, and disease. He says, and that is what I'm here to give you. So when Lord Advaita seen that the living entities had no interest, he was thinking that only the Supreme Lord himself can do something about this. And Prabhupada makes the point that Advaita Acharya, being Purusha, being Mahavishnu himself, he was perfectly capable of doing the work, as he calls it, doing the work. He could have done the job. But because he considered himself a servant, then he wanted to beckon the Lord to come and do it. And in this way, he was calling very loudly for the Lord to appear. And this is where it can get a bit mystical, because we see that Mahavishnu in some ways is superior to Advaita Acharya Vishnu, or by our estimation, Kshiroda Kashai Vishnu. But it's mentioned, Prabhupada mentions that when Advaita Acharya was calling very loudly for the Lord, then the Lord woke up from his mystic slumber as Kshiroda Kashai Vishnu. Now, of course, it's also explained that when Advaita Acharya called loudly, it penetrated the coverings of the universe and went to the spiritual world, and the Lord decided to come. And of course, it was already foretold that Lord Chaitanya would come. We'll speak more about that in Gaur Purnima, the different predictions which foretold the coming of Lord Chaitanya. So he was wondering how they could be benefited, and seeing that devotional service was the only remedy, because nobody was taking interest in the eternal welfare of the Sanatan Dharma. They were interested at best in some material Dharma, and many of them were simply just becoming Kali Yuga specimens, falling victim to the senses. So he thought if Lord Krishna himself were to appear, he could preach devotion by his personal example, and that's what Lord Chaitanya did. He came as Chana Avatar, covered incarnation. He appeared to be a devotee, but he was actually the Supreme Lord himself. So it's interesting because if you look back at the pastimes of Krishna, back in Krishna Lila, then there was a pastime where one Brahmin, every time his wife had a child, the child would disappear. And at some point, this became known to Arjuna. And so Arjuna says, I will guard, and nobody can take the wife's child. But the Brahmin wasn't convinced about this. And sure enough, the next child was born and disappeared, along with Arjuna's bow, Gandiva, because he was boasting about nobody can defeat me with my Gandiva bow. So that disappeared as well. And Krishna, being all knowing, said, okay, Arjuna, we're going on a road trip to see Mahavishnu, because I think I know what's going on here. And so this was some ruse by Mahavishnu simply to get the darshan of Lord Krishna. So he had the ability to call the Lord like that. And similarly here, Advaita Acharya as Mahavishnu also called the Lord, and he appeared. So only we don't have that. We can't go and imitate Advaita Acharya and spend 12 or 13 days supposedly crying for the Lord to appear. And you'll still be crying in another 12 or 13 days. We don't have that. But the Lord can appear in your heart. The Lord can appear in your life. And he has. In Kali Yuga, he's came by the mercy of Sri Advaita Acharya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Krishna himself came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he brought the Yuga Dharma. And the Lord is also present in Kali Yuga avatar as Nam Avatar. So whenever we chant the names of the Lord, it's mentioned in the Shastra that when the conditioned soul chants the holy name of the Lord dances on the tongue of that conditioned soul. So the Lord is very happy to see the living entities chanting. And I'll just use this opportunity to plug. Next Saturday, we're doing Maha Harinam in Glasgow. So we invite everyone to come along.
What time?
Usual time.
Okay.
And we ask everyone, if you come in Harinam, don't come in your dungarees or whatever, try to come nice and smart, dressed as a devotee. There was, at Hawkesbury scene one, he witnessed there was one occasion, there was some ragtag band of so-called devotees. They weren't ISKCON, and they were doing some Harinam thing in London, was it?
In London.
Yeah. And he overheard a conversation where one child was saying to his mother, is that the Hare Krishnas? And the mother said,
Not the proper ones.
yeah. So people have got a better idea of what we're supposed to look like than we think. Because some people have seen Harinam since the 60s and the 70s, going all the way through. They know what to expect from devotees in Harinam. So we should not appear like a bunch of gypsies or vagabonds, or even if you don't have a dhoti or whatever, at least dress smart. I remember once in Budapest, just before the marathon, we were visiting, and one devotee asked Shivaram Swami, should we wear dhotis or civilian clothes? And Maharaj said, it doesn't matter what you wear, just be smart. So that's the main thing, we should be smart, whether we're wearing devotional clothes or non-devotional. That was for book distribution. But for Harinam, as much as possible, then we should represent in such a way that people know who's out there chanting. Not that just some guys have decided to go out and imitate the Hare Krishnas. So that's good. The public feedback is very important. So yeah, just that I wanted to draw that analogy as well. When Prabhupada arrived to USA, he also saw that everyone was hopelessly engaged in material activities. And out of compassion also, he was saying that the only means is that if they take to the chanting of the holy name of Lord Gauranga. This is in the Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma. And he was praying that he could be used simply as a puppet to dance in the hands of the Lord as ever he wished. So Advaita Acharya, he was actually in Vrindavan, and he discovered one deity. Does anybody remember the name of that deity? In the Radha Krishna Gita, there's
Madan Gopal or Madan
Radha Madana Gopal. Yeah. Sita Natha Prandanahe. Sita Nat is a name for Advaita Acharya. So it's not often that someone is addressed as by their wives in relation to the wife's name, which shows you how much of a glorification it is of Sita Thakurani. So I think it's also important to glorify the wife of Advaita Acharya. So Sita Thakurani, she was one of the most senior Vaishnavis, even so much so that when Sachimata was expecting Lord Chaitanya, then Sita Thakurani would go there and instruct her on childcare. And she was also the first there to offer gifts. And she also named him Nimai. When he was born under the neem tree, and Sita Thakurani named him Nimai. And she is none other than the eternal consort of the Lord. So when this date, go back to the story, when Advaita Acharya was in Vrindavan and discovered the Madan Gopal deity. This deity was originally installed by Vajranab, who is anyone? Grandson or great-grandson? Well, I think great. Is it grandson? Okay, hands up, great-grandson. Hands up, grandson. Okay, it doesn't matter how many vote for one, it depends what the Shastra says. Krishna consciousness is not by vox populi. So someone can do a bit of research on that just now. Is it great-grandson or grandson, Vajranab? So he installed many deities, of which Madan and Gopal were one. And that deity represents in the three aspects of Krishna consciousness. What does he represent? Sambandha. So he left that deity in the care of one Brahmin, Purushottam Chaubi, I think that's how his name is pronounced. And this Brahmin and his wife, they worshipped him in a Vatsalya Ras. Yes.
Sorry, Prabhuji, the Google Swami says great grandson of Lord Krishna, son of Aniruddha and Usha who survived destruction of Yadu dynasty.
Okay, that's good. So let's hope we'll remember that. Thank you. But they had so much, being Brajbasis, they were not ordinary personalities. So in Prabhupada, he cautions us against trying to follow or imitate the Brajbasis. You know, just like sometimes you go to Vrindavan, you'll see some of these Brajbasis, they might be smoking bidis, or they might be doing like that. And if you think, okay, it's okay for the Brajbasis to do it, I'll do it. So you're down to the shops now getting 20 Embassy Regal or 20 Lambert and Butler, thinking, I'm a Brajbasi now. You can say that when you're lying in the cancer ward, see if you remember Krishna at the time of death. But no, these devotees, it's been described that the Brajbasis, Krishna's within their heart. They automatically remember Krishna, even though externally sometimes they do things wrong or do things which are a bit questionable. Whereas externally, sometimes we may be doing everything pucker, but internally there's so much going on which is not congruent with what's external. So we shouldn't try to imitate. And the real Brajbasi for us to follow is Srila Prabhupada, who gave us instructions. He's a eternal Brajbasi. So anyway, these devotees, the Brahmin couple, they were worshipping this deity in Vatsalya Ras, which is in parenthood. And one time, Sanatana Goswami seen the way they were worshipping this deity, and he decided to instruct them on how to worship properly. You know, he should be on the altar, he should be offering so many offerings and different articles of puja, etc. And so then the Brahmin's wife, she tried to do it like that, but she was because of her particular mode of worship, it was very difficult for her to give up and worship in this way. So at that night, then Sanatana Goswami had a dream, and the Lord, in the form of Madan Gopal, came to him and said, why are you disturbing my fun? I'm having fun, you know, with these Brajbasis, and you're coming along talking about sticking me on an altar and offering me arti and so many rules and regulations. At the same time, he appeared to the wife of the Brahmin and said, you've got so many sons, Sanatana Goswami doesn't have any, why don't you give me to him? So that's how he ended up with that deity, and then he was renamed as Madan Mohan. So that was originally the deity of Advaita Acharya, and you'll see in that Bhajan Radha Krishna Giti, one line it says, Madan Gopal, Madan Jai Radha, Madan Gopal, Sita Natar Prandana He, and then you see Jai Radha Madana Mohan, Sanatana Prandana He, same deity. So just to give a little bit of the position of Advaita Acharya, as Mahavishnu, then innumerable universes emanate from the pores of his skin. You see in that picture, just next to the cupboard in the corner, you see Mahavishnu there. And the whole cosmic manifestation is emanating from him. He's in control of that, and he's simply glancing over the material nature, which is actually Sita Thakurani, his wife. And on account of that, all the living entities are being organized into the particular universes, particular species of life, which they should be in according to the karma from the previous manifestation. So when, for example, when the Mahat Tattva, or when the end of the universal, the cosmic cycle is there, then everything returns to the Mahat Tattva, or the sum total of material energy, and then at a certain period of time, then again it manifests, and Mahavishnu, he's in control of all that simply by glancing. There's not much we can achieve by a glance, is there? You might attract someone, or you might give them an evil eye or something, but it's not very significant. But by Mahavishnu's glance, then this is all taking place, and this is Advaita Acharya. He's not an ordinary personality. So I would like to just mention a few pastimes of the Lord. So there was one pastime where the devotees had there's two prasadam pastimes that I know of, and there's probably, each time they took prasadam, there was pastimes going on, but at least the Chaitanya Charitamrita gives us some indication of some of the pastimes. So let's see if we can find it. Just give me a second. So there's one pastime anyway where they had just cleansed the Gundicha temple, Gundicha Marjanam pastime, where Lord Chaitanya and all his associates were preparing the Gundicha temple for the arrival of Lord Jagannath, Lady Subhadra and Lord Balaram. And after that, then they were all partaking of Mahaprasadam of Lord Jagannath. So I'll just read some of the verses. So this is just after the cleansing of the Gundicha temple, and then they had some amazing pastime here. Two pastimes. First one here, text 140 from C.C. Madhulila. The sky was filled with the great and loud chanting of Sankirtan, and the earth shook from the jumping and dancing of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always liked the loud chanting of Swarup Damodar. Therefore, when Swarup Damodar sang, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced and jumped high in jubilation. Just like here. He's not jumping so high, actually. His foot's still touching the ground. Thus the Lord chanted and danced for some time. Finally, understanding the circumstances, he stopped. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then ordered Sri Gopal, the son of Advaita Acharya, to dance. So this is one of the sons of Advaita Acharya, Sri Gopal. While dancing in ecstatic love, Sri Gopal fainted and fell to the ground unconscious. When Sri Gopal fainted, Advaita Acharya hastily took him upon his lap. Seeing that he was not breathing, he became very much agitated. Advaita Acharya took Lord Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu within the room, and the two lords saw the arrangement of the prasadam. Sorry, this is just... No. Okay, there's something wrong there. I think what happened was I took a screenshot and then it decided it wasn't going to be there for us. Anyway, so what happened was that the Lord simply instructed him to get up, and then he got up, and then everybody was very jubilant again, just showing that the Lord has the ability to control anything. And there was another pastime. Let's see. Shortly after this. Excuse me a second. Okay, I'll do this one first, see how it's handy. So one time, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda were traveling, and they came across Advaita Acharya's house, and they were invited to come in and take prasad. So this is from C.C. Madhulila. Text 64. Advaita Acharya took Lord Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu within the room, and the two lords saw the arrangement of the prasadam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was especially very pleased. So Lord Chaitanya had been accepting prasadam invitations by so many devotees, and on account of this, then so many, Prabhupada explains that so many sinful persons were delivered. So we just see that simply by the Lord's appearance in someone's home, then people were delivered. Multitudes of personalities. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu approved of all the methods employed in cooking and offering food to Krishna. So this is important. A devotee doesn't just accept an invitation from anybody. Like, for example, if someone is eating meat, a devotee won't accept an invitation to eat in their house. Just like sometimes people come to the temple or they come to a house program and they make some invitation, and sometimes they get offended if we say, sorry, we don't accept that invitation because we are taking strict vows and we can't break that vow, and we shouldn't be embarrassed by that. We have to educate them that we only accept invitations from people who are of the proper standard. Interesting, because when I first became a vegetarian, then I heard that one young girl, a neighbour of mine, also became vegetarian because my mother and her mother were speaking and they were exchanging stories. Because back in those days, in the early 80s, then being vegetarian wasn't so common. And they were saying, oh, she won't even eat anything which touched the pots that I've used for cooking meat. And my mother saying, yeah, it's the same with him. So they were being educated. So this is how we have to educate people, is that we cannot accept these things. In extreme circumstances, maybe something like that for the sake of preaching, but we don't think, I fancy a hot dog for the sake of preaching, then I'll just accept this. No, devotees would rather starve. But anyway, the point is that we have taken vows and we have a certain standard, and this is, Lord Chaitanya is also instructing here that he inspected, he approved of all the methods employed in cooking and offering food to Krishna. So this is important enough that unless he approved of the methods employed in cooking and the offering, then he wouldn't have accepted the invitation. So we're following that in the footsteps of the Lord, so we have the same criteria. He was so pleased that he said, frankly, I will personally take the lotus feet of anyone who can offer Krishna such nice food and place those lotus feet on my head birth after birth. So he was so pleased with that. So just see how the Lord is easily pleased. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered the room, he saw 3 divisions of food, and he knew that all of these were meant for Krishna. However, he did not understand the intentions of Advaita Acharya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, let us sit down in these 3 places and we shall take prasad. However, Advaita Acharya said, I shall dispute the prasadam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought that all the 3 servings were meant for distribution. There was so much prasad, they thought it was for distribution. And I remember the talker told me a story once that when he first went to the temple, he was given a big plate of prasadam, or it was put down in front of you, or you took it, and and he thought it was for like the whole table. And it's, no, that's just for you. And I remember the same thing in Chaitanya College, being given this plate, and it looked like a hubcap from a truck or something, the size of it. And then they're piling it on, and I'm thinking, how am I going to manage this? And there's many pastimes with prasadam, of course, which the devotees also naturally take place. We had one devotee from Sri Lanka, Sati, his name was, and we kept on distracting his attention, and every time his attention was distracted, we put more on his plate, and he'd go like that, as if it just appeared. I would say, oh, Prabhu, you can't refuse it, it's prasadam. It's offensive to refuse prasad. So there was there for about 3 or 4 hours trying to finish it. We did feel a bit guilty, but it was that was our neophyte faith. So this pastime here, we'll carry on with that. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought that all of these servings were meant for distribution. Therefore, he asked for another 2 banana leaves, saying, let us have a very little quantity of vegetable and rice. Advaita Acharya said, just sit down here on these seats. Catching their hands, he sat them both down. So he had another plan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "It is not proper for a sannyasi to eat such a variety of foods. If he does, how can he control his senses?" So the Lord is setting the example here as a perfect sannyasi. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not accept the food that had already been served, Advaita Acharya said, "Please give up your concealment. I know what you are, and I know the confidential meaning of your accepting the sannyas order." So here Advaita Acharya is basically indicating that he knows he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that as in the purport Prabhupada mentions that, or is it in the verse? We'll maybe come to that in a moment. But anyway, he does mention that we know who you are. You're Jagannath. You accept 54 offerings a day, and each offering has got hundreds of preparations. So don't tell me that you can't eat, a few grains of rice. So this is the beginning of some transcendental exchange going on. I know the confidential meaning of your accepting the sannyas order. So he's basically telling them that you didn't accept sannyas to be a renunciant. Advaita Acharya thus requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to eat and give up juggling words. The Lord replied, "I certainly cannot eat so much food." Advaita Acharya then requested the Lord to simply accept the prasadam without pretense. If he could not eat it all, the balance could be left on the plate. So that's a win-win, isn't it? Why is that? Mahaprasad. Or Maha. Interesting. If you can't offer the Lord something twice. It's already been offered, and then you're offering the Lord again. But he's playing the part of a devotee. So it's considered to be greatly fortunate if you take the remnants of the foodstuff of the deities or of great devotees of the deities, great devotees of the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "I will not be able to eat so much food, and it is not the duty of a sannyasi to leave remnants." So he's also instructing those in the rounds order that you only take on your plate what you could eat. Don't save a bit for later. It's not like in the sannyas ashram, they've got plates of half-eaten prasadam in the cupboard. In this connection, Advaita Acharya referred to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's eating at Jagannath Puri. Lord Jagannath and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are identical. Advaita Acharya pointed out that at Jagannath Puri, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ate 54 times a day, and each time he ate many hundreds of pots of food. It seems like they never run out of maha there, isn't it? No matter how many people are queuing up for maha, there seems to be just such an abundance. Sri Advaita Acharya said, "The amount of food that 3 people can eat does not constitute even a morsel for you. In proportion to that, these edibles are not even 5 morsels of food for you." Advaita Acharya continued, "By my great fortune, you have just come to my home. Please do not juggle words, just begin eating and do not talk." Actually, that is also another Vaishnava standard. Prabhupada wouldn't talk when he was eating. But here, sometimes you wonder how the people do eat because there's so much talking going on. It's a mystic ability to talk and eat at the same time. Prabhupada says, "Control the tongue by Krishna Prasadam and by Krishna Katha." It seems that devotees have even perfected that, where they can do both at the same time. Upon saying this, Advaita Acharya supplied water to the 2 lords so that they could wash their hands. The 2 lords then sat down and, smiling, began to eat the prasadam. Nityananda Prabhu said, "I have undergone fasting for 3 days continuously. Today I had hoped to break my fast." So we see that Nityananda Prabhu is taking the complete opposite. One hand, Lord Chaitanya is saying, "You can't expect me to eat such luxurious, copious amounts of food." And Nityananda is saying, "What is this morsel here?" Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was thinking that the quantity of food was enormous, Nityananda Prabhu, on the contrary, thought it not even a morsel. He had been fasting for 3 days and had greatly hoped to break fast on that day. Indeed, he said, "Although I am invited to eat by Advaita Acharya, today also is a fast. So small a quantity of food will not even fill half my belly." Advaita Acharya replied, "Sir, you are a mendicant travelling on pilgrimage. Sometimes you eat fruits and roots, and sometimes you simply go on fasting." So this is the typical mentality of the mendicant, Madhukari. They beg some food when they're on yatra. They maybe just take some food someday, and if no food comes, they take it. This is the destiny of the Lord, that they should fast that day. Even some who do Madhukari, they say, okay, today we're only going to beg from 5 doors, and whatever those 5 houses give, that's what we take. There was it, I think it was Gorkishore Babaji Maharaj. No, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. He couldn't be bothered with doing the, he was so absorbed, not that he was just lazy, but he was actually so absorbed in Krishna, he couldn't be bothered with the bodily demand of going to do Madhukari. So he said to his servant, Bihari, he said, let's just do these 3 doors, and whatever we get from there, that will be what Krishna's designated as our food for the day. So after the first door, he says, oh, forget it, let's chant. Can you imagine your Sankirtan leader doing that to you? Yes, we would go to the ends of the earth to make sure we get a meal every day. So he said, you're a mendicant traveller on pilgrimage. Sometimes you eat fruits and roots, and sometimes you simply go on fasting. I am a poor Brahmin, and you have come to my home. Please be satisfied with whatever little food you have received, and give up your greedy mentality. So generally, you don't address your guests like that. Right? If someone said, oh, there wasn't enough food, then say, okay, let's go send someone to the shops, get something else, rather than, don't be so greedy. Lord Nityananda replied, whatever I may be, you have invited me, therefore you must supply as much as I want to eat. So very expert at batting back the accusations. He didn't take offence. Whatever I may be, you have invited me, therefore you must supply as much as I want to eat. Actually, sometimes the devotees, when they get invitations to houses, I know some devotees who had this experience where there was one person in particular, they couldn't take no for an answer. So they're sitting down to prasad, and the person was known to keep giving you, even when you said no, even you put your hands out and they put it on top of your hand. So they made a plan. They were going to actually make a challenge to this family who'd got a reputation for doing that kind of thing. So they went there, and they didn't say no. They just kept on saying, and your, bring more, until there was nothing left. All we've got is cornflakes, that'll do it. What next? Some milk, okay, that'll do. And then, so they taught them a little lesson. Yes, so if the idea of having a guest in your house is to satisfy the guest, then we have to see when they're satisfied, and then the job is done. His Divine Grace Advaita Acharya, after hearing the statement of Nityananda Prabhu, took the opportunity presented by the joking words and spoke to him as follows. Advaita Acharya said, you are a reject Paramahamsa, and you have accepted the renounced order of life just to fill your belly. I can understand that your business is to give trouble to Brahmins. So there's a lot of things in this verse here. A reject Paramahamsa. Now, how could Advaita Acharya call him a reject Paramahamsa? Anybody? Talks to you.
Because he was an evident, he wasn't confined with the normal rules and regulations.
Yeah, he couldn't be placed in any of the ashrams because the Supreme Lord is not bound by an ashram, for one thing. And Lord Nityananda, being Balaram himself, is an avadut. He'll do whatever he likes. I remember Bhakti Vaibhava Maharaj in one lecture said that the first thing you learn in Krishna consciousness is that Krishna can do whatever he likes. But still, in the Bhagavad Gita, we hear that Krishna says, if I do not perform certain activities, the whole world would be put into ruination. But Lord Balaram, Lord Nityananda, he's not concerned with that. He dances to his own drum. He calls him a reject Paramahams, but this is a glorification. Just like sometimes you'll see people when they're very familiar, they'll criticize each other, but it's actually a glorification, a sign of friendship that they can do that without taking offense. Whereas someone else comes along and says it, and then they would be the first person to defend that friend. And you accept the renounced order of life just to fill up your belly. So this is also an instruction that people shouldn't accept the round sort of life. As he says here, your business is to give trouble to the Brahmins. And Prabhupada talks about renunciants not being a burden on society, that their purpose is to give transcendental knowledge. And if they simply stick on the saffron or pose as some kind of Swami or Guru and take a livelihood from the innocent public who are putting faith in them, then this is actually adharma. Advaita Acharya accused Nityananda Prabhu saying, "You can eat 10 to 20 manas of rice. I'm a poor Brahmin. How shall I get so much rice?" So in other words, he's saying, you can eat any amount and I wouldn't be able to supply it. Whatever you have, though it be a palmful of rice, please eat it up and get up. Don't show your madness and strew the remnants of food here and there. Yeah, sometimes we get that also, that the devotees have trouble keeping the food on their plate. In this way, Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ate and talked with Advaita Acharya jokingly, after eating half of each vegetable preparation given to him. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu abandoned it and went on to the next. So although Lord Chaitanya initially said that a sannyasi can't leave remnants, he was purposely just taking a little from this and a little from that, and he was leaving remnants, showing mercy to the devotees. There was a pastime, if you've ever been to Bhaktivedanta Manor, in Prabhupada's rooms, then Prabhupada was in his room and he heard some commotion going on outside. He looked out the window and he seen two disciples having a bit of a fight. They were kind of wrestling with each other. And Prabhupada says, "What's going on?" And he says, "Oh, Prabhupada, we're just fighting over your remnants." He said, "Okay, very good, carry on." Actually, in the early days of Krishna Bhavan, we used to have regular what we called Maha fights. The plate of prasadam would be offered to Krishna Sindhu, the original deity of Krishna Bhavan, and it would be given to one devotee who would get a head start and run somewhere and try to hide and get as much of the Maha down their hatch before people caught up with them. And it was so much ecstatic experiences from that. There was one time one devotee who was very tenacious and also very clever. When he was given the plate of Maha, he ran into the ashram and he went head first into his sleeping bag so nobody could get to it. But the devotees decided, "We don't care for your sleeping bag." They ripped it up and they got to the Maha. So this eagerness for Maha Prasadam was encouraged. There was another Prasadam pastime where, if you haven't heard it, I'll tell it. And if you have, you're hearing it again. Was that one temple in America, they used to keep the Maha for the traveling Sanktan devotees. They'd keep it in some refrigerated unit. I think it was a truck or something like that. And at the weekend, the traveling Sanktan devotees returned back to the temple and they'd get all the Maha Prasad which had been saved up. But the temple devotees were complaining they were never getting the Maha. So they devised a plan to steal the Maha. Somehow or another, they managed to get into that locked unit and they stole the Maha. And the temple authorities were furious with them and they went to Prabhupada and complained that these devotees had stolen the Maha, which was meant for the Sankirtan devotees. So Prabhupada says, "Well, bring them here immediately." And he brought them. And then he said to the temple managers, "Now apologize to these devotees." So they thought that the ones who stole it were going to get apologized. They were going to give an apology. So this was Prabhupada demonstrating with Mahaprasadam that we should be eager to get that Mahaprasad. We see this also in Chaitanya Leela when one time Lord Chaitanya went to Jagannatha Pandit's house and and he took Mahaprasad, and even though he hadn't bathed or anything, he just immediately respected it, because that is the rule. You should just take it as soon as you're given it. You shouldn't think, let me keep it for later and have it with a little cup of herbal tea and a biscuit, making some plans to enjoy our senses. We should see it as Mahaprasad. Any prasad we get, we should be very happy for it because it's not normal food. If you're last in the queue for prasadam and there's only a little bit of plain rice left, you think, wow, Krishna's merciful. He's given me this prasad. We shouldn't be forming a committee and having a demonstration outside the kitchen saying, what's all this about? We want more. We should be grateful. And this gratitude is what will serve us. Sometimes when devotees are selected to serve prasadam, in their mind they might think, it's the last thing I want to do. I want to be first in the queue. But if you surrender to it, then your mind becomes so peaceful because the higher pleasure of serving the devotees, Krishna rewards that. After filling a pot with vegetables, Advaita Acharya requested him to eat more, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, how much more can I go on eating? Advaita Acharya says, please do not give up whatever I've already given you. Now, whatever I'm giving, you eat half and leave half. In this way, by submitting various humble requests, Advaita Acharya made Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda eat. Thus, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fulfilled all the desires of Advaita Acharya. Again, Nityananda Prabhu jokingly said, my belly is not yet filled up. Please take away your food. I have not taken the least of it. So it just seems like very contradictory statements. I'm not filled up. Take this away. I've hardly taken anything. It's like very quite bewildering, isn't it? After saying this, Nityananda Prabhu took a handful of rice and threw it on the floor in front of him as if he were angry. So we shouldn't imitate such a pastime, throwing prasad on the floor. That's like taking the deity of Krishna, and the prasad is non-different, then we should be respecting prasad like that. But Lord Nityananda, he is a special personality. When 2 or 4 pieces of the thrown rice touched his body, Advaita Acharya began to dance in various ways with the rice still stuck to his body. And if you look at Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll see there's a picture of Advaita Acharya dancing in ecstasy. When the rice thrown by Nityananda Prabhu touched his body, Advaita Acharya thought himself purified by the touch of remnants thrown by Paramahamsa Nityananda. Therefore, he began dancing. Advaita Acharya jokingly said, my dear Nityananda, I invited you, and indeed I have received the results. You have no fixed caste or dynasty. By nature, you are a madman. To make me a madman like yourself, you have thrown the remnants of your food at me. You did not even fear the fact that I am a Brahmin. So many jokes going on here. Nityananda Prabhu replied, these are the remnants of food left by Lord Krishna. If you take them to be ordinary remnants, you have committed an offence. Nityananda Prabhu continued, if you invite at least 100 sannyasis to your home and feed them sumptuously, your offence will be nullified. Advaita Acharya replied, I shall never again invite another sannyasi, for it is a sannyasi who has spoiled all my Brahminical Smriti regulations. After this, Advaita Acharya made the lords wash their hands and mouths. He then took them to a nice bed and made them lie down to rest. Sri Advaita Acharya fed the 2 lords cloves and cardamom mixed with tulsi flowers. Thus there was good flavour within their mouths. So there was a similar pastime just after Gopal was raised from the dead by Lord Chaitanya. Then Lord Chaitanya was personally distributing food, and Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu were sitting side by side when Lord Chaitanya was serving with his own hand. And then they started glorifying each other by making certain criticisms. So Lord Nityananda, he called Advaita a monist because the name Advaita means non-dual, right? Monist. So he was pretending that he was a monist or a Mayavadi. And Advaita Acharya once again called him like a reject Paramahamsa. So this Advaita, can anyone tell me what Advaita means in this regard? The name Advaita Acharya, how is that name translated, or how does it come about?
Non-different.
Non-different, yeah, exactly. The Lord is non-different. Advaita Acharya, he is non-different from the Supreme Lord himself. So we have this verse, Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupasurupakam Bhakta Vitaram Bhakta Kyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. So the Lord appears in different aspects of the Absolute Truth, and Advaita was considered to be non-different from the Lord. the incarnation of the Lord. So, anyone get any questions at this point? If not, then we can go on to the next part, which is we can sing a bhajan. Yeah, so one thing I would like to just draw your attention to is not that we're on the level of Advaita Acharya or anything like that at all. That when Lord Chaitanya came, this year is the 30th anniversary of Kodnitai Mahaprishashi's arrival in Scotland. Shushi Kodnitai Mahaprishashi ki. So this Ram Navami, 30 years ago, was when they appeared in Scotland. And prior to that, for a few years, we had embarked on something called the Gauranga campaign, where everybody we met would ask them to chant Gauranga. And this was on the order of Lord Nityananda, where he says, Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gauranga Namare, Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaja Se Amara Pranare. So it wasn't that we're trying to start some kind of breakaway group, but the idea was that when they chant the name of Lord Chaitanya, because he doesn't take any offense, then people will get purified and then they can become qualified to chant Hare Krishna. So we had advertisements on buses, with posters over bridges, and the holy name of Lord Chaitanya was spreading throughout all of Scotland, north of England, but it was actually going to so many places all over the world. And because the devotees and many members of the public were chanting the names of Lord Gauranga, then it would appear that perhaps you came here to see what was all the chanting about. We like to think like that anyway. So Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, they're here to benedict everybody in this land. They're the presiding deities of Scotland, presiding deities of everywhere actually. And it's their 30th anniversary, so there'll be some special celebrations this year. And we'd like to ask the devotees, some of the devotees have continued with that Gauranga campaign ever since, when we were putting advertisements out on buses and on underground, etc. And the so-called experts in advertisements saying, okay, you can only do this so much because it's a saturation point. But they didn't realize that you're dealing with the holy name here. There's no saturation point. It's infinite. It's not like, okay, I've chanted 16 rounds for 10 years. That's enough. The holy name is eternal. And even to this day, we're still getting people who are meeting the devotees and saying Gauranga, and there's so many devotees, or so many so-called non-devotees who are chanting Gauranga, and still refer to the devotees in that regard. So Rupeshwari, you can sing this bhajan. There's a bhajan glorifying Sri Advaita Acharya. And